Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Emily Moffat, and I'm the community lead for ALS Canada. And welcome to another webinar series hosted by ALS Canada. Today, we are joined by Shelby and Carrie from March of Dimes Canada, who will be discussing their many programs available, such as Home and Vehicle Modification, Assistive Devices Program, as well as their Attendant Care programs. We will be taking questions at the end of each presentation, so please feel free to put your questions in the chat, and as we go along, we'll be monitoring that. So to get started, let me introduce Shelby and Carrie from March of Dimes Canada.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Just give me 1 second here to share my screen successfully. Can someone let me know if you can see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, awesome, wonderful. So thank you so much for joining us this afternoon to learn a little bit more of March of Dimes, about March of Dimes Canada, my name is Shelby. I have been with March of Dimes for almost about 3 years now. I work with our volunteers. I am the Regional Volunteer Services Manager for Community Support Services, and I primarily work in Hamilton, Niagara, Haldimand, Brant, and I support the befriending program. And I also wanted to introduce my colleague, Carrie, who can tell you a little bit more about what she does.
So my name is Carrie Williams. I've been with March of Dimes just over 11 years, and I'm the Community Services Resource Worker for Niagara, Haldimand, Norfolk, and I oversee the Outreach Attendant Services Program as well as the Supportive Housing Program. Thank you for having us today.
So our proud history. So we were founded in 1951 using the market name Ontario March of Dimes. Our original mission was to find a cure for the polio virus, and there was a whole bunch of concerned mothers going door to door collecting dimes for research. Following the discovery of the Salk vaccine, our mandate evolved over the years to serving and supporting not only polio survivors, but all adults with all forms of physical disabilities. In 2006, we took on the national mandate and changed our name to March of Dimes Canada. A little bit about who we are. So our purpose is to champion equity and empower ability. Our vision is to create an inclusive, barrier-free society for people with disabilities. And our mission is to be Canada's leading service provider, resource, and advocate, empowering people with disabilities to live and thrive in communities nationwide. Our culture code. So at March of Dimes, we are all one team. We are accountable to ourselves and to each other, and we are driven to support and empower people with disabilities and all the stakeholders we engage and serve. We live, lead, and breathe with the human connection in mind. We endeavor to create remarkable change, and we adapt and grow together. So there are 2 major divisions of March of Dimes Canada, and I highlighted the ones here that we are going to talk about a little bit more in detail today. So we have our skills development and employment team, which focuses on those programs and services that equip and empower people and families with the skills, tools, and resources they need to overcome barriers and thrive in society. This includes our donor-funded programs, our technology programs, and our employment service programs, all of which support skill development and community integration for those we serve. Carrie and myself are a part of the Community Service and Independence team, where we focus on programs and services that support people to live healthy, safe, and independent lives in their homes and communities. This includes our Community Support Services program, including attendant care, brain and injury services, the home vehicle modifications program, plus after stroke, all of which drive improved health and wellness outcomes for those we serve. And then, of course, like most organizations, we have our shared services. We have our philanthropy team that takes care of our fundraising. We have our knowledge to action team, and then we also have a public affairs division. A little bit more about community support services. So the value of our work. The programs and services we provide ensure that seniors and adults living with physical disabilities and/or brain injuries can live safely and independently where and how they choose and participate fully in their communities and on their own terms. Our work is essential. So we help people stay independent in their homes by assisting with various aspects of personal care, activities of daily living, goal-focused rehabilitation, and maximizing their level of independence. The scope of work we do. So we are proud to be a leading national charity providing attendant care services and supportive housing in Ontario, as well as brain injury services in Ontario, Manitoba, Alberta, and British Columbia. Community Support Services has 1,904 employees. We served 6,100 clients last year, and our services are primarily government funded, but we also have third-party funded services as well. So our programs and services, they provide personal care support to seniors and individuals with physical disabilities. And then we also have our brain injury services. So where we work in our clients' homes. We support our clients if in schools, whether they're attending university or college. We support our clients in workplaces and of course in the community. We have supportive housing where we provide 24/7 services to multiple individuals who live in the same apartment building. We have congregative care programs where individuals live together and share common areas. And then we also have some day program settings available as well. Now I'm going to hand it over to Carrie, who is going to talk a little bit more about what our staff provides.
So our staff provides assistance with personal care, activities of daily living, safety and supervision, and homemaking, respite for caregivers, support when transitioning from hospital to home, because we really do our best to try to prevent that rehospitalization. So our staff, again, provide clients with that support with personal care, and that can all include toileting, bathing, dressing, range of motion exercises, help with assistance in medication, assistance managing household routines, support to age in place, support to manage health-related conditions, respite care for family caregivers. So the eligibility requirements for outreach and supportive housing are the client must be at least 16 years of age or older and have that permanent physical disability. They must require assistance with personal care and activities of daily living. They have the ability to direct their own care. So this goes hand in hand with being able to tell the staff what they need when they need it. Be a resident of Ontario, meaning have OHIP and not be in receipt of insurance funds. More for the actual supportive housing is the requirements. Oh, if we could go one slide. Perfect. So again, in line with supportive housing, again, these services are funded through the Home and Community Care Support Services, formerly the LHIN. And they, again, must require at least minimum 2 hours of personal care per day throughout the midnight hour as well, 12 a.m. to 6 a.m., require that wheelchair accessible unit, be able to live independently. And if the client does have accident benefits such as WSIB or the motor vehicle accident or other insurance, then that client needs to convey that information as there would be a fee for service as that money is delegated towards personal care. So essentially when a client is approved for supportive housing, it's because their care needs cannot be met in the community. They need that on-site staff support with that 24-hour support staff on site. I did actually include, Shelby and I included some pictures of an actual accessible unit that we had just filled last week. And this is again in the Niagara region. As you can see, it's very spacious and completely accessible, which allows the client to maintain their independence as much as possible and just gives them that space to live in. So those are the pictures we included. So how to apply for March of Dimes services for outreach as well as supportive housing is if a client lives in Toronto or York region, they need to fill out an application and station center to exactly that center. And if they do not live in Toronto, but they're more in Niagara, such as my www.marchadimes.ca, and it's a very user-friendly website where how to apply, and it will have the application right on hand as well. And on the application itself, it lists the different areas in which we do provide service in. So they can even call the local Marchadimes to them and request an application to be mailed out to them, especially if they don't have access to a computer or the internet. And either way, we'll get that application in their hands so our clients can get the services they need in the home as well. So these are the March of Dimes offices nearest you. Those are the contact numbers. So by all means, if you have a family or friend or neighbor that is in need of personal care services, you can always reach out and we can start the application process with them. Again, Google March of Dimes, anything closest to your area will come up and we'll get it in the right hands for sure. So does anybody, I know that there's some questions probably that have come through, but for sure Shelby and I will do our best to answer those questions. If anyone has any even feedback, we'd appreciate that.
So we have a question and it says, how long are the wait lists for accessible housing?
Right, so right now, I can only speak, of course, for Niagara region because that's where I oversee it. We have approximately 43 clients on the wait list for supportive housing that have been approved and are waiting. And on average, about 3 units come available per year. And there's no real seniority list for supportive housing just because when a unit does become available, they all live in a shared service model, so that unit already has an associated amount of hours with that unit. So the next client coming in will inherit that service schedule from that previous client. So my goal when I find that unit coming available, I look at the scheduled services, how many hours that week that unit's been allotted per week, and go down my wait list, which client is going to fit the unit the best. Because essentially we want those clients to move in for success. We want all their care needs met.
Perfect, thank you. Another question is, are there services in Northern Ontario?
That I would have to, I'm assuming we're all across Canada, but certain specific cities don't have March of Dimes services, especially outreach services. So by all means, like I would just do a quick Google, and if something office is local to that specific city, then it should come up absolutely. But every area is kind of tricky in that sense.
Yeah, and depending on how north we're talking, I do know, I know we have offices in Muskoka, but I also know that we have a really strong community support services team in Sudbury. So I do believe that Sudbury is kind of our home base for the northern area, but I don't know, like, you know, whether you're talking about, you know, Marathon or Thunder Bay or like, so depending on how north, but there are north areas that we are in, absolutely.
Perfect, thank you. And then just the other question, it just says, thank you so much, ladies, for putting this together. Very informative. Hoping this session will be available on YouTube. So yes, ALS Canada does have a library of resources, and all of our webinars are uploaded a couple days after. So yes, it will be available for future viewing. And that comes to the end of the questions for you two lovely ladies. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us today.
Oh, and so I know I need to change presenter. I think I just did that. Did I successfully change the presenter?
Yes, you did.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you.
So I will go ahead and introduce Lisa, who will be talking a little bit more about assistive devices and the home and vehicle modification program.
Yes, so first off, I'm here with Tiffany today, and there's some loud drilling in the background for her, so she might not be able to jump in right now, but I will introduce her as well. I'm Lisa Slippets. I'm with March of Dimes Canada's Assistive Devices Program and the Home and Vehicle Modification Program under the umbrella of Accessibility Services. So I have been with March of Dimes for 10 years. I started out with HVMP, and then I was with ADP for another 8 years, and then I'm now the Accessibility Services Coordinator. So I work with both programs. And Tiffany, are you good, bad on audio?
I can
Okay.
speak right now, but like it's so intermittent, so I don't want to. I'll introduce myself. So I'm Tiffany Vanderlinden. I am the intake team lead for the Home and Vehicle Modification Program. I've been with March of Dimes Canada for specifically the Home and Vehicle Modification Program for 7.5 years. And I started off as an intake counselor. So yes, I'm looking very much forward to giving you the information everyone needs to be more independent in their homes.
Okay, so today we're going to be talking a little bit about both the Home and Vehicle Modification Program and the Assistive Devices Program. Both are Ontario-based programs, and we're going to start off with the Home and Vehicle Modification Program. So the Home and Vehicle Modification Program is a program that is funded through the Ministry of Seniors and Accessibility. It is a government-funded program, and it provides basic and essential home or vehicle modifications by reducing barriers in the home that are creating risks to life, and also modifications and adaptations which allow adults, children, seniors with mobility restrictions to continue living in their homes, avoid job loss, and participate in their communities. The Home and Vehicle Modification Program can be accessed in many ways. We receive applications by fax, mail, or regular mail. Sometimes we receive applications from clients or their families directly. Sometimes it's through occupational therapists or other community support services. Sometimes we even get requests through suppliers or vendors. We can email out applications, mail out applications, whatever the best way is for people to get the information in. We do have some eligibility criteria for both HVMP and ADP. It does differ. For HVMP, you have to be a permanent Ontario resident. It's an Ontario-funded program. The Ministry of Seniors and Accessibility is an Ontario ministry, so it is an Ontario program, so you have to be an Ontario resident. You also have to be in financial need, and that is a combined household income of under 60,000. But there is a caveat that anyone who has an annual income of over 35,000 will have to contribute towards the cost of the modifications. We actually ask for different documentation as well for anyone over 35,000 to help us, help you, look at any possible deductions that we can include as well to bring down any contribution amounts as much as possible. Also for the program, you have to have a permanent or ongoing disability that impedes mobility and is resulting in substantial restrictions to activities of daily living, that meaning eating, bathing, toileting, transferring, and mobility, and getting in and out of the home, such as to access essential medical care or community services. If the person is looking for construction in the home, such as like a bathroom modification, or possibly widening doorways, things like that, where you'd be making a structural modification, the client also or family member has to be a homeowner who meets the eligibility criteria in order to be able to apply for funding assistance. So there are a lot of eligible modifications, adaptations, and devices that we will look at. We'll leave this up on the screen for you to look at. That's also available online on the application itself. It lists off any of the things that we can look at. A lot of the things that we see requests for are stair lifts. That's probably, I would say, the #1 request. We also get a lot of requests for devices, and that can be things that can be used in the bathroom, like a tub transfer benches, raised toilet seats, handheld shower, commodes, custom commodes, also Hoyer lifts, any kind of bar other than a suction grab bar. That's probably on the things that we don't look at on the next slide, but we will look at like grab bars, safety poles, clamp-on grab bars, bed rails, things like that. A lot of devices that are in the home, we get requests for a lot of that. And then less so, we get requests for actual structural modifications because those projects tend to be quite large. We also have ineligible modifications listed on our application. These come from frequently requested devices. We cannot help with the purchase of a home, and we can't do modifications to newly constructed homes. We don't do anything to do with therapeutic items like whirlpool baths, swimming pools, exercise bikes, things like that. We don't do upgrades or repairs to the home. It only repairs that we do look at, because that is mentioned, is repairs to things that we would also fund. So if you needed a new battery for the stair lift, that's something that we would consider. And we also don't fund, as I said, construction projects where there's a rental agreement in place. So if you're looking for construction, you have to own the home. Then over to our vehicle side, we have a lot of things that we will consider with regards to vehicle modifications: specialized seating, accessories, remote control devices to help open garage doors, raising the roof, lowering the floor. Mostly those would be to help get a wheelchair in and out. Barrier-free modifications to garages, vehicle modifications to meet a child's changing needs, and repairs to electrical or battery operated modifications not covered under warranty. Things that we don't look at is much shorter for vehicle modifications. We don't look at the purchase of the vehicle. Similar to home, we won't buy the actual device or the home itself, and we don't look at upgrades or repairs. Tiffany, are you wanting to? No, okay, it's bad right now. Okay. So we also have some requirements in terms of what documents that we need to have sent into the program so we can consider the request for funding. The first is an occupational therapist letter of assessment. This assessment would have to be on the therapist's letterhead, or they can send in what we have online on our website is called a verification disability, and asks the same questions for both the letter as it does on the verification of disability. And we're looking to get an idea of the picture of what's happening in the home, what supports are available, the list of devices, adaptations, and modifications that are being requested, how the client's transferring, and again, some of the context around the situation. If somebody was looking to get a bathroom modification in their home but didn't have a stair lift in order to be able to get up to that floor where the bathroom is, we would want to be knowing what the plan is for the level-to-level changes. So we're kind of looking at the whole picture when we're looking at the application as well. So the list of required documents varies depending on whether or not you're looking at a home modification, adaptation, or device, or a vehicle modification. It also changes depending on if you're looking for devices or construction projects. So you'll see that at the bottom with number 5 there, but we'll go through it. One, you have to have a completed and signed modification proposal. That's the application that we have. It's available online on the website. We are constantly trying to make that document updated, a living and breathing document. So as we receive feedback, as we receive requests to clarify potentially some of the information that's in the application, we're going to be updating that document. So the newest version is always going to be found online on our website. We require proof of income. It is a means tested program. So as I said, if you're under 35, we can accept like a notice of assessment. If you're over 35,000 and up to 60, then we would accept a T1 general form, which has a lot of the lines. It's the whole document, so that we can again go through and see if there's deductions that we can apply to help bring down any required contribution that might be impacting the cost that we can look at. For home modifications, we also require, as I said, the occupational therapist letter of assessment or the verification of disability form. We require a price quote, one if it's a adaptation or a device, and we require 2 competitive quotes if it's a construction project. The last thing we need is the proof of home ownership, again for construction projects only. For vehicle modifications, we require the same thing: signed modification proposal, proof of income documents. We will need a certified driver's rehabilitation specialist letter or an OT with advanced specialty training in assessing driving skills. We will need a quote and the proof of vehicle ownership as well. So again, just talking about the proof of income, it lists off some of the documents that we will accept. So anything over 35, T1 general. Anything under 35, we can take the T1 general, but we can also accept some documents that are a little bit sometimes easier to get, which can be like an ODSP stub. Gains also sends out stubs. And the notice of assessment from Revenue Canada for the most current tax year. So for right now, for instance, it would be 2022. As soon as we get into April, be 2023, and we accept 2022 until July. We always accept the current one until July of the next year. In terms of construction and non-construction, so there's always a question about what actually qualifies as a construction request. If you are moving a barrier in the home, that could be either construction or non-construction, but with regards to building something new, a demolition, or any structural changes. We can only work with contractors that have WSIB certification in the request that they are in regards to the construction that they're looking at. So for instance, if you're looking for some plumbing to be moved, we would need the WSIB certificate to match that this person is certified for plumbing. We also need proof of home ownership, such as a deed or a property tax bill, and we need 2 quotes. For anything non-construction, these are often devices and adaptations that are transferable, meaning they can easily be removed from the home. We are also looking at installation of something that is prefabricated, such as grab bars, stair lifts, and it is often the best use of the funding for clients to be able to age with disability. It's the only option for rental situations, and only 1 quote is required. In terms of the best use of funding, because I don't think it's covered in here, the Home and Vehicle Modification Program considers funding up to $15,000, and that's $15,000 lifetime maximum for home modifications and $15,000 every 10 years for vehicle modifications. So that's why we tend to say that we prefer and would recommend projects where it's for transferable equipment for devices, because you can probably get a lot of devices for $15,000, especially over the course of a long time. Versus if you're trying to get something like a bathroom modification, you're going to have a hard time getting a bathroom modification for $15,000. So there's already going to be other funding in place that you're going to need to secure. And again, it's kind of a one and done situation. We can't help you again after that's done. Whereas if you're getting like a Hoyer lift, maybe a couple $1,000s, you still would be able to apply again in the future towards the maximum of up to $15,000. And that's not a guarantee of funding, it's just the maximum that you can apply for. It depends on the funding that we have available. So that's what we're looking at when we're looking at basic and essential solutions. That's what we mean by basic and essential. It's going to be something that is going to be explicitly related to a client's disability and their current mobility restrictions. And we don't look at anything that doesn't have to do with removal of barriers. Equipment is often the most basic and essential solution, so that's why we recommend it. And if we're looking at construction projects, we need an occupational therapist to detail what equipment has been tried and why that wouldn't be suitable. The program also does not approve reimbursements. So if equipment modifications have already been completed in the home, we are not able to provide reimbursement for those costs. And then we also have a restriction regarding outdoor work where there's concrete involved, and we won't look at anything to do with concrete projects between April to October. And that's simply because the ground freezes. We can't pour concrete when the ground's frozen. So that's why we have that in place as well. So we've actually made a lot of changes to the Home and Vehicle Modification Program over the last year. Starting with our application, we used to have a 2-stage application, one where you would complete just some information and a questionnaire, and then the second stage where you would send in all of the documents that go with it. We've shortened it down to a 1-stage application. We find that it's easier for everyone to understand. All of the information is available up at the front, and you're not surprised by us asking for documents after you've already sent in the first application. It's also shored up our timelines. It used to be something like, I think, 40 days to hear back about the application, possibly longer, and it's quite quick now. We're usually processing applications within about a week or two, and then getting them over to a barrier-free design counselor for review of the file and update within about another week or two. So it's about 3 to 4 weeks. We also are looking at equipment and devices funding now. That used to be something that was under our Assistive Devices Program, which I'll talk about shortly, which has also been updated in 2023. And that entire chapter, which is assistive devices, anything that was transferable, has moved over to our Home and Vehicle Modification Program. We have updated our payment agreement, our construction payment agreement, to make it easier for people to understand and read. And again, that speed of service comes with a 1-stage application. We've sped that up as well. And that is it for our Home and Vehicle Modification Program detail. I'm going to switch over now to our Assistive Devices Program.
Can I just stop you? I just have a couple questions.
So sure. Yeah.
Handle those questions. Okay, so I think you touched upon some of this in your presentation, but I'll just read the question. So I know that contractors have to have WSIB. Is that the only qualifications? Can a family member who is a contractor still complete modifications?
We've had a question like that before, or that's come up before in our programs. It's complicated. There are other requirements for contractors. You have to be able to be paid by EFT. We don't issue checks. You have to have a registered business name, so, like with the CRA. So there are other requirements that need to be met in order to be considered a vendor for March of Dimes Canada. There are circumstances where somebody has all of that. There's just a concern with like conflict of interest when it comes to pricing and things like that, and making sure that everything is above board. So it's not a no, but it's also we have to look at the situation individually as it came in. It's not very common that it happens, but yeah, we'd have to review it.
Okay, perfect. Second question is, who would I contact if I needed assistance completing the application for home modification?
Yeah, so we have a robust intake team who are able to take questions, help with any questions that you have when filling out the application. We can't fill it out for you. We don't have staff to go out to be able to do that, but we can certainly do over the phone or over email, reviewing the application and answering any questions that might come up.
Perfect. How long does it take from start to finish to get everything approved and get contractor in to do work?
Largely depends on the contractor and what the project is. Sometimes you need to wait for parts to come in. Sometimes there's components. Sometimes they have a list of projects that they have to do in order. So I can't speak to the contractor part because that will depend on who you want to work with. In terms of the application, it also depends on what documents come in. So if we have a complete application, we'll say we have everything we need. Again, it'll take about 3 to 4 weeks to get into the hands of a barrier-free design counselor and have them review it and see if there's any additional information that we need. Perhaps we need pictures of the area that weren't included, or need some clarification about what the request is. So that can take additional time depending on what's required. And if we need documents back, probably a couple months depending again on what the situation is. Sometimes it can be faster if there's a contractor ready to go. Sometimes it can be longer if other things are needed.
Okay, thank you. The other question is, you stated you can't do modifications on new builds. Why is this? So does that mean I would not get a stair glide in my brand new home?
If it's new to you, it's different than if it was just built. So if you had the opportunity, when we mean new builds, is I think we've reworded in the modification proposal document to be a little bit more clear about what we mean by new builds, because I have had that question as well. Let me see what it says. Modifications to newly constructed homes, i.e. buildings or structures that are brand new and have never been lived in. So that's what we're meaning. So you had drawn up the plan for the house, you purchased the house and knew that stairs were going to be in. We can't now modify it because that's a newly built home. So in that case, no, it's not something we would look at.
Okay, the other question is, if I go through MOD for modifications to my home, is there a warranty, and do you offer a repair program or ongoing support?
The warranty would come from the contractor or the equipment supplier and the manufacturer. All of that would be arranged with whoever you select to work with. It is client driven, so you are the one who's going to be getting the quotes or contractor in place that you want to work with, and then those are the questions that you would be asking to see who you want to work with and what they can offer for in terms of warranties and potential maintenance programs and anything like that. So that's a consideration. And if in terms of service, again, it's a $15,000 lifetime maximum. So if there was something you needed because something stopped working on your stair lift a couple of years in and you still had some funding left under that 15,000, it's potentially something that we would look to be able to repair if it wasn't covered under warranty. But there's no guarantee for funding. It depends on what funds we have available at the time of application.
Okay, and then just the last one is, does March of Dimes take donations of equipment?
We don't have an equipment donation program, no. At one time I think we did, but it's not something that we have. So for things like that, there are other programs that do take donations of equipment, especially if it's newer. And yeah, it's possible you could go back to the vendor who sold it to see if they accept used equipment and could maybe offer you a deal, or if they know of other people who might need it as well.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, ladies. That's the end of the questions.
Awesome. Okay, so over to our Assistive Devices Program. This program is different than our Home and Vehicle Modification Program in that it is not government funded. It is a donor dollar funded program that ensures adults and seniors with disability who are in financial need have access to mobility devices for their mobility and functional independence. So unlike in previous years, our Assistive Devices Program, aptly named Assistive Devices Program, would fund assistive devices. We have moved that part of the chapter over to the Home and Vehicle Modification Program, and we are only looking at mobility devices because, again, that's covered under another program. So we don't duplicate service. So the types of devices that we look at are going to be different than they were in previous years, which we'll see in a minute. The way to access the program is the same as it would be for the Home and Vehicle Modification Program. Self-referral, OTs, community supports, vendors or suppliers all may be able to refer or ask us to send out an application, which we're happy to do. We do so by mail, email, and we also receive applications by fax, email, or mail as well. For the Assistive Devices Program, unlike the Home and Vehicle Modification Program, we don't serve children. It's for individuals who are 19 years of age or older, also permanent Ontario residents, and we have a combined income of under $35,000 maximum. So there is no after 35 up to 60 contribution level situation with the Assistive Devices Program. It's just a maximum of $35,000. And for both HVMP and ADP, that household is meaning the client and their spouse. So it's client and spouse income of under $35,000. And then also the last thing is that you'd have to have a permanent or ongoing disability that is impeding mobility. In terms of what to expect when you're contacting the Assistive Devices Program, we would be looking to confirm any funding sources. Again, it's a donor dollar program, so sometimes we would need to see if there's other funding available and see what those other contributions from any other agencies might be. We look to make sure that equipment is being delivered or picked up from the vendor, and we would also send a survey. If it was a vendor, we send them a payment commitment, which is our guarantee of funding. We wait for proof of delivery and invoice, and then we issue them payment. The priority for the Assistive Devices Program is basic and essential mobility devices. We have limitations in that equipment that comes in without Ministry of Health Assistive Devices Program approval or any other cost sharing is difficult to fund because of the cost of equipment, and it being a donor dollar funded program, funding is limited. So Ministry of Health Assistive Devices Program, same name, different program. We're not related to them in any way other than we share a name. We'll sometimes fund individuals who are not on ODSP for 75%. Individuals who are on ODSP are eligible for up to 100%, but there are certain things that they won't consider and then ODSP won't consider as well. So we might see requests for that, and some things might be what's called like an eye level or an elevating seat lift on a wheelchair. It's not considered by HVM or the Ministry of Health Assisted Devices Program or ODSP. So we could see sometimes requests for that, but those devices are often $3,000 plus. So usually other funding needs to be in place as well because of the high cost. Similar to HVMP, we don't fund anything that's a reimbursement. We also don't fund anything through private sale. So some of the devices that we will look at are canes, walkers, transport chairs, manual or power wheelchairs, scooters, power add-ons, positioning devices such as like cushions, back and head supports, or power tilt and recline, replacement batteries or mobility device repairs, and used mobility equipment that is sold by a medical equipment vendor, not through private sale. The required documents for the Assisted Devices Program are a completed and signed application, one price quote, the letter of assessment from an occupational therapist or a physiotherapist, proof of income, and a copy of the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care's Assisted Devices Program approval for any devices that are going through the Ministry of Health for funding assistance, again, for that 75% or the 100%. So things that have changed for the Assisted Devices Program in 2023 is that it's a mobility-focused program. We have an enhanced application process, which is similar to the Home and Vehicle Modification Program. And our threshold, our income threshold changed. It was $22,000 for one person, $32,000 for two, and then it went on from there. It's now just a flat $35,000 for applicant and spouse, and any other person. It happens to be in the home, but applicant and spouse are the ones we look at. And that is it for the Assistive Devices Program.
Okay, there's just one question. Is there any programs like HVMP, ADP in other provinces?
No, not at this time. There might be other similar programs not through March of Dimes in other provinces, but not through March of Dimes do we have another ADP or HVMP program.
Okay, and the other question is, do I have to go through Ministry of Health, ADP first before I access your program, or can I use both at the same time?
If you were eligible for the Ministry of Health, which would be determined by an occupational therapist or physiotherapist, then you would go access that program first, as they take 4 to 6 weeks. They're pretty quick now, but 4 to 6 weeks to determine if it's been approved. So the processing timeline for the Assisted Devices Program is about 2 to 3 weeks. So we would wait for their approval of 75% before we can look at something like 25% coverage.
Okay, that was the only 2 questions.
Great.
Thank you very much.
I'm trying, I'm sorry, my apologies. I'm trying to, there's 2 organizers and they both say the same thing, ALS Canada. I just want to make sure I'm sending it back to the right person. Perfect, thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, ladies, for sharing all of this. And I know our community, there's a lot of questions about it, and we do talk a lot about these programs with March of Dimes with our community members. And so it's great to have this as another resource and to have you guys as additional resources as well. So I want to thank all of you, Lisa, Tiffany, Carrie, Shelby, for joining us today. And I also want to thank all of our participants who joined us today and asking all of these amazing questions, as it's very useful information for other individuals as well. And so, as what was mentioned earlier, this webinar is recorded and will be posted on our social channels, so on our YouTube, in the next coming weeks. So please, if you have any questions on these webinars, please reach out to your community lead and if there's any questions that come up. And so thank you everybody for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day.
Everyone.